right now with Anna Willats, who is a longtime anti-violence and social justice activist in Toronto. She helped organize the gender justice actions during the G20, and she's a member of the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition, here to talk about the police.
Hi, everybody. My name is, for the purpose of the media, my name is Anna, A-N-N-A, Willats, W-I-L-L-A-T-S. And I'm both pleased and sorry to have to join you here today. Of course, we would all prefer not to be here at all. There's going to be a lot of people here today talking to you about what happened during the G20, about the demands of the organizers for today. I just thought I would talk with you a little bit, give a little bit of history about Toronto police and demonstrations and some of the things that people experience in Toronto, not only on during significant events like the G20, but also in the day-to-day. So I just want to talk a little bit historically here, since I'm a little older and I've been around for a while. All through the 1990s, women like Jane Doe, women who organized the Pussy Palace, all of those women have been working very, very hard for a very, very long time to educate the Toronto Police Service on how to do their job free of homophobia, free of sexism, free of sexual assaults, free of oppression of all kinds. What we saw during the G20 is that those lessons obviously have been ignored and have come to nothing because of the extreme sexism, and people will talk to you about that. And that, in fact, is a shame. Women have put their lives on the line. Women like Wayne Russo, almost killed by her husband. Jane Doe, a victim of a serial rapist who worked for over 20 years to try to educate this police service, to give them some kind of sensitivity to what women who have been assaulted deal with. Back in 2002, the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition gave the Toronto Police Service guidelines that were written up by people in the community, people like you, about how they should police demonstrations. And those guidelines in 2002 talked about, number one, trusting us to police our own demonstrations, because we've been doing it for a long time and we'll be doing it for a long time still. And we know how to. We know how to keep our demonstrations organized. We know how to keep demonstrators safe. We know how to make sure the issues stay highlighted and that side issues like the police do not get in the way of the message that we're trying to get out there. Those guidelines also included suggestions that people not be detained in handcuffs for hours and hours. They included suggestions that police not point guns at people during demonstrations. They included things like asking the police or telling the police not to overrun our demonstrations so that there are more of them than there are of us. They told, those guidelines included things like police officers negotiating and having clear communication lines with demonstrators and with leadership and organizing. None of those things happened during the G20. In 2006, the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition, one of our members in particular, Harvey Simmons, for over a year worked to make sure that Toronto police officers wear a name badge, something that identifies them, so that when you or I are confronted with an aggressive, overbearing, arrogant officer, we know what their name is, we can take a complaint forward. What did we see during the G20? Nothing. Badges covered up, torn off, almost no ability to hold officers accountable for what they're doing. In 2005, no, earlier than that, our former police chief, Julian Fantino, wanted the ability to strip search everybody who was detained by the police service. That's what he asked for in 2002. Toronto Police Accountability Coalition and other activists said, no, you have to abide by the Supreme Court decision. It's a golden decision. Look it up. You can only strip search someone if you have a bona fide reason to believe that they are carrying weapons upon their person, or if they are carrying drugs. What did we see during the G20 arrest? Mass strip searches. Jurisdiction problems. Yesterday, I was reading in the paper a report out of Vancouver that said the RCMP would not share information with the Vancouver police, and over a dozen women in Vancouver's downtown east side were murdered as a result of their incompetence, their arrogance, and their inability to share information. That also happened here during the Bernardo situation. I think, and I think many of you will agree with me, we saw the same thing happening over the last weekend in June. We had Julian Fantino fighting with Bill Blair, fighting with God knows who else over who was in charge. And what happened? Nobody was in charge. And that's what we saw in the G20. Folks, these lessons have been brought to the Toronto Police Service, they've been brought to the RCMP, they've been brought to the OPP time and again by activists like yourselves, by community workers, by people who have been victimized by police. We have recommended, and our reports are all sitting on their shelves. And our reports are clearly being ignored. There is no accountability for what happened on June 25th and 26th and 27th. We just shake our heads hoping there will be accountability. People will talk to you about the dropped charges and the lack of evidence and the no evidence. That's a lack of accountability. We have got a police service that bows to no one. We have got a police service that does not listen to the civilian oversight that is put in place, does not listen to their community. And we need a police service that acts a lot differently than the one we saw at the last weekend of June. The other thing...
Hear, hear.
The other thing I want to remind all of us, for those of us who up until that weekend had not had much to do with police officers in Toronto, let alone OPP and RCMP, what people experienced over the weekend of the G20 is the daily reality of people of color, poor people, immigrant people, sex workers, marginalized people all over this city, all over this province. People in detention. Let's not get into the innocent versus the not innocent. We all have human rights. They're all protected, whether we have status in this country, whether we are under arrest, whether we are detained, whether we have broken a law or not broken a law. We have the right to be treated with dignity. We have the right to talk to a lawyer. We have the right to get good advice about what our next step should be. We have the right to freedom from sexual violence. We have the right to freedom from oppression. And we don't lose that right because some bloody officer in town from God knows where has decided that we look like we might cause trouble because we have a black t-shirt on or some other profiling piece that they have decided to bring us in on. We have that right whether we are innocent or not innocent, and we've got to not let them divide us from each other that way. I'm innocent today, tomorrow I could be not innocent in the eyes of some officer on his or her whim, and we need to understand that. That is the state of policing. That's what we saw. That's what people in this city see every day when they break into their homes in the middle of the night looking for their son because he happens to look like somebody, well, that maybe did something 2 weeks ago, right? This is not the way we deserve to be policed. This is not the way we want to be policed. In fact, what we want them to do is get out of the way. Stay out of the way. Let us bring our issues. Let us have access to the people that have been elected to represent us. It is our right to demonstrate in front of offices. It is our right to go up to that fence. It is our right to be here right now. And we got to keep demanding that right and not let them intimidate us. Thank you.
During the G20 and after the G20, there have been ongoing arrests. Over 1,100 people have been arrested. Dozens are facing conspiracy charges.
Boo!
Okay. Yes? Okay. You guys good? So, over the course of the G20 and ongoing, over 1,100 people have been arrested. Dozens are facing conspiracy charges, and some have yet to be released. Our next speaker is Jonah Hundert, who works in solidarity with Indigenous sovereigntists and land defenders. He was involved in G20 Protest and is currently working on the support committee for the 17 organizers charged with conspiracy, doing direct support work for his brother Alex.
Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone so much for coming out today. Can you say and spell your name before you My name is Jonah Hundert. For me, that's Jonahhundert. So again, my name is Jonah. My brother is one of the 17 co-accused currently facing conspiracy charges related to the G20. Of those 17, one person is still in jail. He has been denied bail. He has spent over 2 months in jail. The other 16 of those 17 people are all on house arrest. They are facing some of the strictest bail conditions that the court is legally able to give out to people. They are facing house arrest. They are not allowed to use cell phones. They are not allowed to communicate with their co-accused or with their communities. These are the kinds of bail conditions that we usually see applied to murderers and to gang trials. Now remember, these are people who were not even on the street on Saturday. These people were arrested in house raids Saturday morning and picked up out of cabs on their way to press conferences and off the street on that day before any of the property destruction happened on that day. They are not accused of violent crimes. These people were targeted for their politics. These people were targeted because they are effective community organizers. They were targeted because they fight alongside Indigenous leaders, alongside land defenders, on behalf of immigrants, on behalf of marginalized communities across Southern Ontario and Quebec. And for that, they are arrested and facing extremely serious jail time. So there's a few things to remember. One thing is that these kinds of bail conditions are not only meant to penalize these 17 people. These bail conditions are meant to damage our communities and to damage our movement. And I'll say what I mean. For one thing, we are now faced with raising over hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Legal Defense Fund. And that is money that could be spent elsewhere, but we need to do this to support all these defendants. And it is important to support all of the G20 defendants. They're trying to sap our energy and our resources. And also very practically, they are removing 17 very effective community organizers from their communities. But we cannot let them win. It's also important to remember that, as Anna said, the kind of harassment and intimidation, the kind of violence at the hands of police that we have seen to these 17, to the 300 people facing charges, to the 1,000 people who were detained, to the over 40,000 people who are on the street, is the reality for people in this city every day and across this country. The other thing to remember is that these kinds of charges and these kinds of bail conditions are rare. They don't happen very often, and they happen when our movement is the strongest. This is a sign that we pose a threat to the government and to the police and to the austerity measures of the G20. We're seeing a moment in time where people in this city are furious. They were furious leading up to the G20 about what the G20 represents, and they are angry now about police violence. We cannot let them weaken us. It is important that we keep moving forward. People have asked me how people can support those 17 and the other defendants. There's a very practical way. One is donating to the legal fund. But even more important is that we do not let them stop us. We do not let them kill our momentum. That we keep moving forward, we keep growing stronger, we build solidarity, and we build momentum. We cannot let them intimidate us. We cannot let them silence us. On behalf of Indigenous rights, on behalf of migrants, on behalf of the poor, on behalf of disabled, on behalf of queer justice, keep fighting. We know that people are tired. We know that they're trying to sap our energy, but do not let them. Keep fighting. And if you are not already involved, get involved. There are countless ways in this city to stand up and resist these police, resist the government on all levels, municipal, provincial, federal. All of them are trying to damage us, and we must keep resisting. Thank you. Release all the G20 defendants. Drop all the G20 charges.